Well, we finally got a dry day here at Fox Run, so it's time for us to put a transmission in the old Mr. Plow here. So the first thing we're doing is, I didn't realize when I parked this truck here that I would be putting myself at risk. See, this is a walnut tree, and you see all those? Those are walnuts that every once in a while fly out of the tree at you. So we're going to try not to get pelted with one of those. Okay, so first things first with this particular task, and yes, my battery's in the wrong spot. That's something to fix as well. But you're going to disconnect the battery, and then let's go underneath and I'll tell you a few more things. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a quick overview of everything that has to be disconnected or removed. And then what I'll do is I'll start removing stuff, and I'll show you the particulars as we go, kind of deal. So one of the things we got to do is come back here, and we'll mark the drive shaft for phase, and then we'll pop out the rear drive shaft, and we're going to put a pan underneath our transfer case because it's going to squirt fluid out everywhere. One of the other things we'll do is drain the transfer case, right? So there's a drain on it right here. That's what this guy is. This is, sorry, I got too many things and not enough hands. So this one's our drain. This one's a fill. Okay. This one's a 263 manual shift T case. So that means that this guy takes deck 6, just like our transmission. If this was the electronic unit, it takes the Auto Track 2 fluid. So keep that in mind. One of the other things we got to do is obviously pull the front shaft, which on that end, on the diff end, it's just the U-bolt caps, or U-joint caps that have to come off there. Those little. And then on this end, you got to take this boot off, and then it slips out of the T case. The other thing to remember is, because the T case is going to have to come off to get the tranny out, is that we have this harness that runs up and the speed sensor plugs into the T case. We also have the transfer case shift linkage up there as well that's going to have to come out. But again, a lot of this stuff is going to wait until we actually remove other components. Once we have the transfer case out of here, we'll have a little bit more room to play, which obviously the transfer case bolts onto the back of the transmission right there, just with those nuts. Okay, let's slide our way forward here. So up front here, we're going to have to take the starter off, and then this shield's going to have to come off. Those transmission lines are going to have to come off. Over here, we're going to have to pull the bolts, well, those nuts off of the studs on the manifolds. On both sides, obviously. There's the 2 bolts back here, our nuts that will have to come off, because we're going to have to drop the Y pipe, which means we also have to unplug the oxygen sensor. So up here on top of the frame rail, hopefully you can see that connector there. That's the connector for the oxygen sensor for downstream on this side. On this side, it's right here on top of this cross member. And we will be taking that cross member out later too. So there's a couple things I'll get started on doing here, and then we'll get into, oh good lord, look at all the various things leaking. Anyway, we'll get into some of that other stuff later. Okay, so once you remove this clamp here, this is what you're basically looking at. You slide this guy back off the transfer case, and then you can just slip that front shaft out. Okay, so with your front drive shaft out, you can see a lot more of this stuff now, right? So your upstream connector on the driver's side is right here next to the transmission. So we unplug that guy. I already popped off the shift shaft, or cable I should say, I guess. On this side, you'll see there's your upstream. If we slide over here by where my body mount should be, you'll see here's both of your, this one's downstream, this one's upstream. So we can disconnect those from here, and I already showed you where your other downstream connector is. Okay, so I've been picking away here. I've got the Y pipe out of the truck. I've got the cross member and mount out of the truck, which the cross member, or the mount is shot. So I can't say I'm surprised. So these bolts here, they're 21 millimeter with a nut on the other side. So I remembered, see, I used to pull a lot of these transmissions when these trucks were still worth putting transmissions in. You can let it sit on top of the torsion bar cross member if you still have your T-case on. So if you do that, it makes it easier to drop the Y-pipe out. Now the nuts on the Y-pipe on all of the studs should be a 15 millimeter. If it's anything like my truck, which is a rusty piece of crap, then chances are you're going to have to get out the torches and, well, hope they come off. So we had relative luck, I would like to say. But anyway, yeah, this is the original mount too, which is kind of neat, I guess. 19 years it went. But it's buggered. Like the friggin' stud pulled out and everything when I went to take the nuts off, which they're 15 millimeter also. A lot of the stuff on this truck is a 15 millimeter, just so you know. Anyway, where's my light? I'll show you some more stuff here while we now have some more additional space. So those are your fuel lines that run up the back of the transmission and down here and then get severely rotten where they come down here. So someone's already been in buggering with mine, which anyway, I'm just going to pretend like I didn't see that. That's the transfer case vent line. That's the switch for the transfer case so that the light in the dash comes on to say you're in four-wheel drive when you shift it. And this, of course, is your Prindle, which is why we got the big connector on here. So that's got to get disconnected. And yeah, we'll be rolling along here. Good news is, with the torches, I didn't burn the truck to the ground, so we got that going for us. Anywho, let's get some more crap undone from this poor thing. Which, did you see how rotten this the shift cable is? Look at that. It's a miracle that thing was still holding on there. Luckily, the one on the used transmission I have is in better shape than that. Holy crap. Yeah, so I'm going to pull the starter off. Battery's disconnected now, so I'll get that undone. I'll get all this stuff unplugged, and then we'll see if we can get this poor shifter undone from the transfer case. I don't hold a lot of hope in that, unfortunately, but we're going to see. We'll try. We'll try. Okay, so we got some, hurricane force winds here, and it's trying to rain and all the usual things that happen around here. So if you take the side cover off the transmission here, you can disconnect the actual connector for it. With it disconnected, I decided to drain the fluid so that I could, well, shed a little weight out of the transmission. Be thankful that they haven't invented smell-o-vision, because, whoo boy, that is some stinky fluid. There's no doubt in my mind why I had no reverse. Because I think the reverse is right there in the pan. I don't know if you can really come to appreciate how dark that fluid is. But, like, that's... Ew. Yeah, that's the fluid's black. You can see it's, ooh, boy, there's a lot of clutch material in there, and it is burnt. Oh boy. Yeah, so I'm gonna slam that pan back on now that I got all the stinky fluid out, and I'll drain the transfer case while we're here, and then we'll carry on. Okay, so with your starter slid out of the way, it's just two 13 mil bolts, and then this little shield that goes in here, it's just a 10 millimeter bolt. You don't have to take it all the way off. And by doing so, ta-da! My camera focuses. There's your torque converter bolt. You got 3 of those. So you take the three 15mm torque converter bolts out, and then you can slide the converter back, and you're laughing. Okay, there's a couple things that are just easier if I show you here on this transmission versus the one that's in the truck. So over on this side here, there's this little spot here, and it's got, where the hell did it go? There it is. It's got this 8mm bolt in it. So that's holding the fuel line and all the cables and all this crap on a little bracket here. There's another one that goes here, which I'll show you on the truck, that holds the fuel lines as well, and then they also get retained up here. This little side shield, it's easier to take it off, and then to disconnect the harness on the transmission, you just push the two sides of it in, and then it slides off. Your transmission lines, they use what we called at various shops everything from Jesus clips to Hail Mary clips to things I shouldn't repeat. So you pop them out, and then your lines just kind of wriggle out of the transmission, right? Like you just kind of keep working them, and they will eventually just pop out. Right. I'm not going to pull that out right now. I'm going to have a big mess here on the bench, but so, and then your breathers, again, they're bolted up at the top of the tranny too. So I'll show you that stuff in a few minutes here when we're back under the truck. Okay, hopefully you can see. At this point, we're going to start removing the, my phone would focus, the bolts that are holding the bell of the transmission up. Or the case, I guess, is actually what we should be calling it, because you only have a bell housing on a manual transmission. Yeah, I apologize. There's no good way to get in here. I'll show you on the one that's on the bench. Let's see, I got my handy dandy floor jack / transmission jack. I made that a number of years ago, and I've used it to pull many transmissions on my back. So anyway, I'll get that crap pulled and then we'll talk about it. Okay, and there you have it. Going around the top here, anywhere that there was a little bracket or whatnot, it had a 14mm nut. You'd pull that off, you'd remove your bracket, and then it was a 15mm. Now I cut my lines because I'm not reusing these lines. They were leaking so bad. This transmission was down like 4 quarts of fluid, and that's probably how the previous owner burned the tranny up. So, same with the dipstick tube. It's all rotten. I have another one that's in better shape. But that is it out. Now I got a whole bunch of stuff I got to fix while it's out, because the fuel lines are now leaking profusely. But that's life here at the garage. Okie dokie. So as you can see, I have got the pan off of our replacement 4L60, and I wish that you could smell the fluid compared to the other transmission. This one smells like just transmission fluid. So I have a lot more faith in this transmission. And also, let's have a look in here in the pan. Like, other than what I would say is normal amount of wear that you get with a transmission, an automatic in a truck, like it's not bad. I think this one just hasn't been serviced in probably ever. Like, it's got 190-ish K on it, and there's not that much material in the bottom of the pan compared to our other transmission. So I have a lot more faith in this transmission. We'll go ahead and we'll clean the pan and the magnet, and we'll put a new filter in it. But I think we're going to be okay. Like, tranny lines even came out of it perfectly. So other than having to scrape about 10 pounds of sand off the bottom of this transmission, everything else seemed to be okay with it. So we're doing okay that way. Now, I broke the fuel lines. Well, I didn't break them. They're so friggin' rotten that as soon as I disturbed them, they started to leak. So I found this kit on Amazon of all places, and I couldn't even buy a fuel line for what the whole kit cost. And as you can see, it's got all the right connections on it to run from the fuel rail all the way to the tank. So we're going to pop those on while the transmission's, not in the truck. And yeah, so we'll get that serviced, we'll get those fuel lines on, and we'll be laughing. Maybe we'll wait a day or two to finish that. Okay, so the truck all back together and everything. I had it running, and I ran it through the gears, and we have forward, we have reverse, we have a whole bunch of good things like that. So the transmission's good. The reason I didn't film it going back in, it's the exact same as it coming back out. It really is just in reverse. That being said, so you'll see that the gas tank shield's down. I had it running and I suddenly had gas coming out of everywhere underneath the truck. Okay, so we're in for a snowstorm. So needless to say, I'm quite happy to have the truck ready to go here. One thing I forgot to mention, when you go to fill up the transmission, I'm going to go ahead and put this, well, a ways back in the video when I'm talking about the installation of the transmission, but the way I initially fill them, because I had to pan off this one and everything, so I start with about 5 to 6 quarts of fluid. I run the vehicle. I'll go ahead, I'll put it in gear, I'll put it in reverse, and then I let it idle up to temperature, and then I'll check it from there and fill fluid up. This one ended up taking about 7.5 quarts of fluid. The transfer case took 2.5, so I figured I'd mention that. Just, you know, that's something I should have put in earlier.